Hello class, today we are diving into section 3.1, Graphing and Writing Inequalities. Before we talk about graphing and writing inequalities, I'd like to just go over a few definitions. The first definition is inequality. An inequality is a mathematical sentence that contains less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or not equal to. The equal sign with a slash in it means not equal to. And the solution of an inequality. Any number that makes the inequality true when substituted in for the variable is a solution of the inequality. Looking down at the two examples below, we have k is less than 3 and f is greater than or equal to negative 2. Both of these statements are inequalities. If I plug in a number like 2 for k, 2 is less than 3, that is a true statement. Therefore, 2 would be a solution of that inequality. Any number that is less than 3 would make that statement true. If I put in 5 for k, 5 is not less than 3. Therefore, 5 is not a solution. If I put in a number like negative 1 for f, negative 1 is greater than or equal to negative 2, so that would be a solution. Any number that is bigger than or equal to negative 2 will make that statement true. So negative 2 is also a solution. Please take a moment to pause this video, write down the definition of inequality and the solution of inequality. Now I'd like to talk about graphing inequalities. There are a few important rules that you need to know before you can start graphing inequalities. The first one is if you have the symbol less than or greater than, you put an open dot above the number. And if you have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, you put a closed dot above the number. When you fill in the dot, I like to think of it as you're filling it in to include it, so that number is included in the solutions. And if you always write the variable on the left side of the inequality symbol, the arrow will point the same direction as the inequality. Please take a moment to pause this video and write down these 3 rules. Now I'd like to try a few examples. The first example is g is greater than 3. Well, I know that it's just greater than, so that tells me I'm going to have an open dot. So I draw my number line, 0, 3. I know I'm going to have an open dot above 3. My inequality symbol is pointing to the right, therefore I would draw an arrow to the right, and I have graphed that inequality. G is greater than 3. Please take a moment to pause this video, record the example in your notes, and try the next 2 on your own. In this case, I look at my symbol. It's less than or equal to, so that tells me that I have a closed dot above my number negative 2. My less than symbol is pointing to the left, and since my variable is also written on the left side, I know that my arrow will point to the left. Now I've graphed that inequality. My last inequality is 5 is greater than q. Well, in this case, my number's on the left, so I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to write my variable q on the left and 5 on the right. If we notice, my alligator or Pac-Man was eating 5 before, so it's still going to be eating 5. I've now rewritten my inequality with my variable on the left. Since it is less than, I know that I have an open dot above 5, and since my inequality symbol is pointing to the left, my arrow will point to the left. And now we have graphed all 3 inequalities. Now we're going to talk about writing inequalities from graphs, since we know how to graph inequalities. There are a few simple steps to follow. The first one is write the variable on the left and the number of the dot above it on the right. Second, determine which is larger and put the appropriate sign between the variable and the number. And the third and final rule is use the dot to determine if the variable can be equal to the number. Please take a moment to pause this video and write down the 3 rules. Now I'd like to try an example with you. If we look, I know I have my variable, let's call it x. And the number, looking at my number line, I have 2. Well, looking at this, My arrow is pointing over to the left, so I know that x is my smaller number, and my symbol should also be pointing to the left. Lastly, I look at my dot. It's closed. Since it's closed, it means x can also be equal to 2, so I put the line underneath my symbol stating that x is less than or equal to 2. Please take a moment to pause this video and record the example in your notes. Now I'd like you to try a few examples on your own. Please take a moment to pause this video, record the 2 examples in your notes, and try them on your own. Looking at the first example, I'm going to write x on the left and the number 4 on the right. My arrow is pointing to the left, which means my inequality symbol should also be pointing to the left. My dot is open, which means that 4 is not part of the solution. Therefore, the inequality is x is less than 4. In the second example, I write my variable x on the left again, and my number 2.5 on the right. My arrow in this case is pointing to the right, therefore my inequality symbol should also point to the right. I look at my dot is closed, which means that 2.5 is part of my solution, and x is greater than or equal to 2.5. Before you finish taking your notes, I would like you to record these 3 problems as well as your answers to them in your notes and come to class prepared to discuss them.